All right. Good morning. Welcome to Fast Ready Training. We welcome you. This is going to be a introduction into all the alternate pathways that we have to near state financial aid. You have some students that are able to apply for FAFSA, but for those students that can't or don't want to for certain reasons, we have alternate pathways for them to apply. So feel free if you have any questions to throw them into the Q&A panel. You can find that right next to the green share button. Just says Q&A. It helps us really keep a cumulative list of your questions because if you have them, other people have them too. So we have to keep a list of those questions and then answer them on our FAQ section on the Faster Ready training page. You can also put them in the chat if you would like to as well. So we'll have those open, but hopefully we'll be able to answer all of your questions throughout the entire training for today. After this training, all of the PowerPoints and the recording will be available on the Fast Ready training page. If you miss something, or if you want to share with a colleague, you're more than welcome to. They can get the most up-to-date PowerPoint and seminar presentation on the Fast Ready training page. So I'm Jeff, by the way. I'm the training manager at HESC. I've developed this with my colleague here. I'm gonna have her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Natasha. I'm the Special Populations Coordinator here at HESC. So I help coordinate for the DREAM Act program, the alternate pathway, and the TAP for incarcerated students.
Awesome. Really glad to have Natasha here with us today. Subject matter expert. She's done a lot of work in all these fields. So her expertise is going to be really helpful today during this training. So today, as we go through it, we're going to do a couple of different things. First, we're going to explain the alternate pathways to New York State financial aid. We're also going to explain some new features like a pre-screening statements that students will have to select before they apply for alternate pathways. Then we'll review the eligibility applications for both the DREAM Act and the alternate eligibility pathway. And then we're going to walk through the TAP application from this site, from this perspective. Okay. So to get us going, to get our minds right, to help us kind of focus and think about what students will be helping with these alternate pathways, we're going to read through some scenarios. As we read these scenarios, you have to answer them right now. We will ask you to answer them later on, but just think about what pathway might be best for the student as we go through the training. You're going to learn and try to figure out which pathway each student may be eligible for and may be most helpful to. So scenario number one, okay, we're going to, you have Jared here who moved to New York 3 years ago from California. He attended high school for 3 years at Xavier in Brooklyn. Jared's parents both work in Brooklyn and are U.S. citizens. You're going to learn which application should Jared fill out. Scenario number two, Brittany is a New York State resident who was born and raised here. Her parents recently decided to move to North Carolina to care for an elderly parent after Brittany graduates from high school. Brittany's parents are both U.S. citizens. Scenario number three, Rocco was born and raised in New York. He graduated from high school a few years ago and decided to work for a few years to figure out what he wanted to do. During that time, Rocco got married. Rocco has to begin attending college to pursue a degree in elementary education. He is a U.S. citizen, but his partner is not. What application should Rocco fill out? The last scenario, Pedro arrived in New York last year. He is a Ukrainian citizen who had to leave home due to the war. He is currently in temporary protected status, but has a work authorization SSN. Which application should Pedro fill out? If you go through these next through introductory courses, introductory slides into these programs, you're gonna learn which application might be best for these students, and we'll quiz you to see if we can figure out which one it should be.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Jeff. So those scenarios, like you said, get us thinking. So now we're going to review the three different pathways that you can access financial aid in for New York State. So first, we have our split tap pathway for FAFSA filers. Most people are pretty familiar with this pathway. This pathway is for U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens. And then for them, they're just going to fill out the FAFSA and continue applying through TAP. Our next pathway is the DREAM Act. DREAM Act pathway is for students who are typically not eligible for FAFSA, or for students who are eligible for FAFSA in some cases, but this is going to be for students who do not meet the citizenship or residency criteria for the FAFSA TAP pathway. And we're going to look into what that says more when we get to that slide. Finally, we have our new pathway, which is the alternate eligibility pathway. This new pathway is going to be for students who are eligible for FAFSA. So they're going to be eligible citizens or eligible non-citizens. However, they do not want to submit the FAFSA pathway due to privacy concerns. So if you are eligible for FAFSA but do not want to submit it, now New York State has a new pathway to allow you to receive only New York State aid without submitting a FAFSA first. And we're going to learn more about that throughout this presentation as well. Okay, so next we're gonna look at the FAFSA TAP pathway application a little bit more. So, this FAFSA TAP application pathway is gonna be for students who are citizens who have a social security number or eligible non-citizens, which include permanent residents and other statuses as well. This is really important to note. This is for New York State residents. So you have to be FAFSA eligible and a New York State resident to apply through the FAFSA TAP pathway. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act pathway is for students who are typically not eligible for FAFSA, or maybe they do receive FAFSA, but they cannot use the FAFSA TAP pathway because they don't meet the citizenship or residency criteria. So there's going to be certain immigration statuses that are eligible for DREAM Act that are not eligible for FAFSA. This includes DACA and other students. However, this is also for FAFSA filers who are not New York State residents. So, and a quick example of that, which we'll get into later, is maybe you're eligible for FAFSA, but your permanent address is in another state or another country outside of New York. If that's the case, you may still be eligible for New York State aid through the DREAM Act if you meet the other criteria for the program. And we'll look at that more in depth when we get to the DREAM Act portion of this presentation. And last but not least, our new alternate eligibility application. This is a new pathway which has been created for students who, again, meet the FAFSA criteria, but decide not to file a FAFSA because of privacy concerns. This privacy concern may mean that their parent or spouse, one of their FAFSA contributors, are not an eligible citizen or non-citizen. So this is just another pathway for students to access New York State grants and scholarships without submitting the FAFSA. And we'll learn more about this application as well in the upcoming slides.
Awesome. Thanks, Natasha. So the biggest question that everybody has is how do I know which application is right? But when they go into the application site, the actual application, the entry application is the same, right? They go to the same link, and then they have to determine whether they're going to apply for the DREAM Act or alternate eligibility pathway. So to determine which application is right, we have now pre-screening statements. We usually say questions, but they're not really questions. They're statements that may capture the student situation. So when starting an application from now on through the DREAM Act portal or ISTS portal, the student will be presented with pre-screening questions or statements. They'll have to select which statement best describes the situation, and from there, they'll be either be taken to that actual eligibility application or given further directions on where to go to apply for financial aid. So the three statements that you'll see are one, I'm eligible to apply for New York State financial aid under the Jose Peralta DREAM Act. Those are for students that meet those requirements. You will see on that path determination questionnaire or statement questionnaire that there are links to those program pages. So if a student is confused about what the eligibility requirements actually are, they can go to those program pages and look at those eligibility requirements before selecting the application. Once again, this is for students who may have certain immigration statuses other than U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen or permanent resident, and meet the requirements that we will list later on for the DREAM Act. The second statement they have to choose from is I'm a New York State resident and can apply for FAFSA, but opted out due to privacy concerns for family members. This will send people to the alternate pathway, right? Because they're eligible for FAFSA, but they're opting out due to privacy concerns. And then the last statement is I'm a New York State resident and I'm willing to complete the FAFSA using my family's members' information. Students who select that option will actually be set to say, hey, go fill out the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the best way to maximize the students' opportunities for financial aid. Right? If the students are eligible for FAFSA and are willing to do that, and they don't have privacy concerns because of their family members, the fill out the FAFSA is really the best route to go to get all the financial aid that's available to them to attend school. Students that go to alternate pathway are not eligible for federal aid, and it's actually a few has programs they're not eligible for either that we'll talk about later. So their financially available get New York State aid is a little bit more restricted. Okay. Once they select one of those statements, they're going to be able to confirm that statement, right? They'll need to confirm that statement because once the answer is selected, it can't be changed until after the application processes, right? So if they choose the wrong one, we'll tell you how to get through that and how to update that. Now, I did mention that there's some aid that these students are not eligible for. So students who apply through the DREAM Act are eligible for TAP, STEM, Excelsior, Enhanced Tuition Award, and a Memorial Scholarship. So they're able to get New York State, all New York State programs, or at least apply for them. Now, if they apply through the alternate eligibility application, those students are not eligible for Excelsior or ETA. That is because a requirement right now by law is that those students that are eligible for FAFSA must complete the FAFSA to receive Excelsior or ETA. This is something that this may play into students' decisions on what they choose. If they realize I've got Excelsior or I want to get Excelsior or I need Excelsior, and they realize that they can't get it through that pathway. All right. So from here, we're going to take a deep dive into the DREAM Act pathway, and Natasha is going to take us through that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. So, yep, so now we're going to learn more about the New York State Dream Act, who can apply, how to apply, and all the questions you may have. Okay. So first, again, I said this a bunch of times now, but this is for students who do not meet citizenship or residency criteria for the FAFSA TAP pathway. We're going to go through criteria in the next slide. So for now, I just want to emphasize to begin your application for this, you're going to go to hesc.ny.gov/dream. You see that on the slide right here. And then your students are going to press apply today, and it's going to take you to this screenshot we have here. That's the account login. Students are going to create an account to begin their application. We really want to let everyone know that to set up this Dream Act account, it is very simple. It's not as complicated as creating a FAFSA account. So they just enter their email, they create a password, and enter their date of birth. And that's how simple it is to create your Dream Act account. From there, students are going to submit their Dream Act application. Once that's approved, they'll move forward with submitting their financial aid applications. So now let's get to our next slide and learn a little bit more about the criteria for eligibility that I keep mentioning. Okay, so for the citizenship criteria, these are the citizenships that can apply for DREAM Act. So these are going to be the T visa or U visa, temporary protected status, otherwise known as TPS, deferred action for childhood arrivals, which is also known as DACA, or for students without immigration status, which some people might say undocumented, without papers. Those might be some common terms you hear from students and their families that also mean without lawful immigration status. So those statuses are typically not eligible for FAFSA. So when they're not eligible for FAFSA, they can try and apply for the DREAM Act. So meeting the citizenship criteria is step one. There are other criteria students must meet in addition to this to be eligible for DREAM Act, which we'll get into in one moment. However, I want to emphasize again, when I was talking about the DREAM Act, I said this is for students who do not meet citizenship or residency criteria for the FAFSA TAP pathway. So those citizenship statuses are the ones who don't meet the citizenship criteria. However, the other population is going to be the students who don't meet the residency criteria for the FAFSA TAP pathway. So as you see in this bottom bullet point, it says U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens whose permanent home is outside of New York State are also eligible for the DREAM Act. So that would mean students who are citizens, permanent residents, or paroled refugees whose permanent homes outside of New York State may still be eligible for this pathway if they meet the upcoming requirements. So if they meet any of these citizenship, that's step one. Now let's go to the next slide where we're going to see step two. So after they meet one of those criteria, they still have to meet this education background criteria. So the education criteria means they have to meet one of the following. So they either have to have attended a New York State high school for 2 academic years and graduated, or they need to hold a New York State high school equivalency diploma, or they need to be charged in-state tuition at a SUNY or CUNY college for a reason other than residency to qualify. So, for example, if they met, let's say, the citizenship criteria, let's say they had DACA, they're good, step one. Step two, let's say they went to New York State high school for 2 years and graduated. Okay, that's 2 out of 2 so far, so they're good to go. There is one more criteria that students must meet. If they attend, we'll go to the next slide now. We'll see if students did attend a New York State high school for 2 years or more, or they have their equivalency diploma, they must also apply for Dream Act within 5 years of graduating or receiving that equivalency diploma. That's for undergraduate studies. If they're applying for a graduate program, they have a 10-year wait period. So that's going to be really important to know for Dream Act. So there's 3 things to keep in mind. 1, do I meet the citizenship criteria on that list? 2, do I meet one of those 3 education criteria? And last but not least, did the students apply within 5 years of getting the New York State diploma or equivalency diploma? Okay. So that's a little bit about who qualified for the Dream Act. Okay, so now you know who's qualified. So again, if the students want to apply, they go to FAFSA.NY.gov, click apply today, and then they're coming to this page. They have an account already. They simply log in. If they don't, they're going to click register at the bottom, and they're going to create their account. As you see here, they just put their email address, a password, and their date of birth. Really important, we encourage students to not use their high school email address. We know counselors, you're a lot of times helping them create these accounts in school. Encourage them to use a personal email account because they're going to use this Dream Act account for the entirety of their college career. They should not be creating a new login each year. Each year, they should just renew their application within the same account. This could cause problems for them down the line if they're creating new accounts each time. So if they use a personal email address, it's best. They'll always have access to it. So they're going to use that personal email address, put their date of birth, and then they're going to just register and log into their account. And then it's really easy from there. Okay, next. So then the students are going to go to the Dream Act application. When they log into the account, they're going to see add new application up top. So they're going to click add new application. Pretty standard. They want to start their application. First, they're going to go to those pre-screening questions that Jeff mentioned earlier. So feel free to look back at that for any questions. Once they choose that they're eligible for the Dream Act, they're going to be taken to this application, the Dream Act application. So the first page of it is the Dream Act eligibility form page. It's pretty straightforward. So the students are going to indicate their level of study as an undergraduate. They're going to let us know the name of their high school they attended. They're going to let us know if they're a high school graduate. They're going to let us know all these details about their high school experience. They're going to let us know their citizenship status, and they're going to answer these questions. Students may be required to upload documentation based on the answers to these questions. Something that's really important to know is at the bottom of the screen when they click submit, these answers are going to be locked in when students hit submit until the entire application is done. So let's say a student clicks the wrong answer, right? For now, they're not going to be able to fix that, go back and change your answer until the whole application is done. We just encourage you as counselors to sit down with the students when they're doing this stage and really make sure that they're answering correctly. Make sure if they're if they're starting their bachelor's, that they're hitting undergraduate, not graduate. Sometimes students don't know this terminology, so just help them here. Yeah, and then after that, if there is any issues, they can go back and change it later. And we'll talk about how to change your information at a later point of the document of this presentation. Okay, so now we can go to the next slide for the Dream Act eligibility application. It's the same thing. Students are going to choose their immigration status. They may be required to, here the student begins their main application after they go through all of that. So the student's going to enter their first name, last name, date of birth, and if they were ever known by any other legal names. Really important here for students to make sure there's no typos. We ask students to input their last names exactly how it's spelled on their college records as their high school records. There's a reason for this. So let's say my name's Natasha Torres, right? On my high school records, maybe I have 2 last names. A lot of times we see students have 2 last names. If I have 2 last names on my high school records, I should put 2 last names in the student information section. The reason is we need to verify that the student went to high school for 2 years and graduated. And if there's a name mismatch, if I put 1 last name on this application and I have 2 last names on my high school records, then we're not going to be able to match you. And that's okay. Students will have an alternative option, which we'll talk about later if there's a name mismatch, but it will just make the process so much quicker and more efficient for the student if they make sure all their information is correct. Another common mistake we see is when students are putting date of birth. A lot of times students put date, month, year, but as you see on the screen, it's supposed to be month, date year. So just double check with the student that they're inputting their birthday correctly here. Again, this could just be something that delays their application processing time, and we want to make sure the students get their awards approved as soon as possible. Okay.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you, Tasha. So we're from here, we're going to go into the next phase of it, which is the notifications. So the email on files what HESC will use to notify students. And in the event that we've reached out a bunch of times, students can put a phone number there. HESC might use that phone number in extreme cases to contact the student to get pertinent information to fix their account, things like that, in rare situations. You'll also need to enter some grade level information, like will they have a bachelor's degree when the school year begins, where they are in the college process, whether they've never attended college or first year undergraduate. Even if students have some credits from school, they should from high school, they should still select that never attended college first year undergraduate if they're a high school senior going into their first year in school. Okay. Natasha mentioned earlier something really important with the names that is on the application. Make sure the names appear like that is on the high school records. Why? Because we have to verify that. So the student will have to select how HESC should verify their high school verification. So there's one where we can verify it through New York State Education Department, or the other is a manual verification that students will have to do. You guys will be excited. Those of you guys that have been around for a while will be excited at a change on how we do the manual verification. I'll talk about it in a second. But the students will have to enter their high school. There's a drop down menu here. They can select their high school from the drop down menu. If the high school does not populate on the drop down menu, the student will need to upload their high school transcripts. We need to do that manually. They could also enter their high school student ID if they know it, if they have it, and then say if they are going to be a candidate for any of those programs that we have listed below. Some of these programs are run by HESC, like Aid for Part-Time Study, which has now been merged into Part-Time TAP. And then Scholarship for Academic Excellence is run by HESC, but the other programs are run by SCD and other people. So we don't have as much influence on those things, but students should know if they're candidates for those programs and then select if they are or are not. Now, when it comes to high school verification, this is huge, right? When we verify students through SED, we, like Natasha said, we send them, here's the student's last name. Can you verify that they went to school there? SED says yes or no. We get a check mark, we get no, and then we move forward from there. If SED can't find the student or for whatever reason, the name is wrong, high school is wrong, whatever it may be, the student will have a chance to make a correction. They can go back and update their name or whatever it may be. Now, the other option is to manually verify. Some students will have to manually verify based on if their high school is available on that drop down menu. The way we used to do that is we used to say you need a transcript with your graduation date listed. When students are applying in October, in November, in December, they don't have that transcript that has the anticipated graduation date then. Those students would have had to wait until right around now, right, May or June, when they're about to graduate to get that transcript. And what was realized was that is a barrier for some students that really want to get this done, especially because by this time they should know where they're going, they should have their award packages, but they can't have that when they have to wait till May and June to provide that transcript and then be approved and then go to TAP and then fill out their financial aid applications. So we were able to change that process. So now magnification only requires that the high school types on the anticipated graduation date. So if it's September, October, November, and the student's anticipated graduation date is May, the school can type that onto the document, onto the transcript, and we'll accept that. We will not accept handwritten anticipated graduation dates. It needs to be typed onto the document. But this is huge for students. This will be a great weight lifted off of students, and even you. I've talked to some of you that are like, I don't know how to get this over. What do you mean? We won't have this till June. We fixed it. All right, we fixed it. Now you're able to help those students get through the application process early to be able to apply for financial aid and then see their award packages earlier on in the year. So good win for you guys. Thank you for your continual feedback in that process. So moving on, after all those questions have been answered from the pre-application to the application, a list will populate of all the documents that students need to provide to process their application. for this, for this application that we have is test one. Right now, it's just proof of citizenship, but it may be things like transcripts or other things, other immigration documentation, or citizenship documentation may populate there. Uh, if students are without lawful immigration status, or if the student doesn't have SSN, they are able to remove their street address from those documents, so they can use Word or Adobe to black those names or redact those names out and those street addresses out as a way of protection for them. We would need all documents on this list before we can process the application. So this application will sit here for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, until all the documentation is added to it and then submitted. You will receive an email, or students will receive an email from HASC every 2 weeks to say, hey, you started an application. We need some stuff from you. Come on back and finish it out and submit your documentation and submit your application. So we need the documents. Applications usually take can take anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks to process, to tell students whether they're approved for a Dream Act or not. So just to summarize all that real quick, just a quick summary. Um, Student wants to apply for Dream Act. They go to the Dream Act website, create an account, hit add new application. They do the pre-screening questions, and then they submit the Dream Act eligibility application like we just walked through. After that, they'll be approved or denied. If approved, they can come back into their account, hit add new application, and submit their TAP application. Once they get their TAP application submitted, they'll be able to accept their award. That takes about 2 weeks or so. And then after that's done, they can keep submitting financial applications. If they want Excelsior, STEM, other scholarships, they can come in and do that. We really ask that students look at their email, especially the spam folder. I can say when the students have said, oh, I didn't get that, and it's in a spam folder or junk folder or something like that, check email, because we do reach out to students that need documentation. And oftentimes the student doesn't know about it or doesn't see their email until it's too late, and then they're reaching out in an emergency. Please check emails for HASP regularly so that we can get the documentation that we need and get students through the process. So now let's talk about the new alternate eligibility pathway. So it's something we're really excited about. We worked really hard on in this last few months to get up and running, because we realize that there's a certain number of students who are U.S. citizens. They're eligible for FAFSA, but because of privacy concerns for their family members, they did not want to fill out the FAFSA. So this is a way for those students who are citizens or eligible non-citizens who have a parent, spouse, family member that would be required as a contributor on the FAFSA. If they have those people and they don't want to apply for FAFSA, they can now get New York State aid. They cannot get Excelsior or ETA, but they can get TAP, STEM, or other programs through here. Those students that they want loan forgiveness programs, they can still get loan forgiveness, but it doesn't have to go through here. They can just go through our TAP website and just apply for loan forgiveness as is. But this is a great option for students that just want New York State aid and don't want to fill out the FAFSA. Okay, so the beginning is much like the Dream Act. They'll go to the link, they'll register for an account, they'll put their name, email address, birthday, make their account, add new application, do their pre-screening, and then they'll end up with the alternate pre-application. So here we are asking students for much the same information that they would have provided before. Their citizenship status, immigration status, right? U.S. citizen, permanent resident, things like that. Students will need to enter a social security number here. This is actually an old screenshot. It doesn't say TIN anymore. It just says social security number. There's just need a social security number here. And then they can select the level of study that they're seeking aid for, right? So first year, second year, in the school year, right? Much like we do for TAP 2024, 2025, or 25, 26. So when this opens, it is available for both 24, 25 and 25, 26. Just like everything else, we are opening this with the same kind of flow that we do for TAP, where we have more than one academic year open at a time. Students will also have to confirm their residency for New York State by selecting yes or no if you lived in New York State for the entire calendar year. Much like the Dream Act, that first page, once that's submitted, students cannot go back and change anything. They have to wait till it's processed before they can now go back and make any additions or changes or reach out to Dream Act or to the ISTS or to us to update that information. So make sure that information is accurate, especially social security number. I have seen students mess that up over and over again, right? And I mess it up too myself, right? You're going through it really fast and then you realize, oh no, I messed that up, right? So please make sure that they're entering the information accurately and completely. Now I hand over to Natasha is going to take you through the rest of this alternate application.
Okay, so yes, very similar to DREAM Act. That was page 1. Now we're on page 2. This is our alternate eligibility application. So pretty basic here. Students enter the personal information, enter their first name, last name, suffix, and this is going to be really important. So back when the students registered and created their account, remember, they only have to put their email, their password, and their date of birth. So if their date of birth was incorrect when they registered on the account, it's going to be incorrect here. So their date of birth is already pre-populated in that registration page. So if it was wrong for some reason, if anything was happened with that, you can see here they can contact NYSDream at applyists.com to correct their date of birth. So that email is going to be really important. Any changes for anything, that's the email for students to go to. Later on in this application, students can indicate if they had any other legal names, but for now, they can just put their first legal name, last name. Okay, you keep scrolling down. Now it's going to ask you that question. Have you ever been known by any other legal names? They can put yes or no. If they select yes at the end of the application, they're going to have to upload some documentation to show that they have that other name. They're going to then input their address here. So they're going to put their country, their city, their state, and their postal code. So really important for this application, we do not ask students to put their full home address. We limit it to just the city, state, and postal code. This is intentional. We recognize that students are submitting this application because they had privacy concerns about inputting their data. So that's why we limit it and we're only asking this specific information. This is a way for us to make sure the students feel safe when submitting their information to us in New York State. Okay, so now if you keep scrolling, you get to the notification section. So the email that students use to register for the account is where all of the email notifications are going to go. This is again why we let you know, please don't use your high school account. If you use the high school account and later you get locked out of it, then you won't ever receive the notifications. Then students have the option to put in their cell phone number or their other phone numbers that they may have. We typically don't reach out to students via phone. However, if there are some very outstanding application issues and you're not responding to emails, we may contact you via phone just to make sure you get your award and to make sure everything is resolved. Next, it's going to ask about student grade level. It asks if you have a bachelor's degree when you start seeking financial aid. You put yes or no. Most students do not. But, depending on your answers, some other questions will be populated as well. Okay, then you answered everything. Last but not least, again, we get to supporting documentation. So for these students, they're going to need to upload proof of citizenship, or if they are a paroled refugee, or if they have some type of other status, it's going to ask them to prove that here. Based on your other answers, you may be required to upload other documentation as well. If anyone has any upload issues, you can email that email again, nysdream@applyists.com, but usually upload goes smoothly. Okay, after you upload your documents, you scroll down and you get to your submit eligibility application form. You just affirm that you read the disclosure statement, you understand it's your responsibility to make sure the application is complete. You can do a signature. So most students opt for an electronic signature. You can either choose electronic or a physical signature. So you select that. If it's electronic, you simply type your name. If you want to download our form and sign it and then re-upload that, again, that is completely fine. So after all that's complete, applications again take up to 2 weeks to be processed. So that's 2 weeks from the time that the application is complete. So on your homepage, you may see the application says submitted, but it may not say completed. If it doesn't say completed, you have to go back and look at it. If it doesn't say completed, it usually indicates that you didn't upload the required documentation. So just make sure everything's done. After that, it could take up to 2 weeks. Once that's approved, you move forward and do your TAP application, just like the DREAM Act pathway. Just a quick overview. It's the same exact overview as DREAM Act. So the alternate application steps: 1, you go to our homepage, click apply today, you create an account, you do the pre-screening questions, and you indicate that you're eligible for FAFSA but don't want to fill it out due to privacy concerns. You do this application, you wait to see if it's approved. If it is, you can move forward. You click add new application again on your portal. And then you're going to submit your TAP application and any other applications you're interested in submitting. And last but not least, please, students and counselors encourage your students to check their email for any questions, updates, if there's anything missing. We'll let them all know right in their email. Okay, so that was a lot of information. We reviewed the DREAM Act, the alternate pathway. So now we're going to go back to those scenarios and we're going to review them. And at this time, we're going to let you answer to see if you know which pathway the student should apply through. So here's scenario 1 again. Jared moved to New York 3 years ago from California. He attended high school for 3 years at a high school in Brooklyn. Jared's parents both work in Brooklyn and are both U.S. citizens. So which application should Jared fill out? Give everyone a little moment to think through. Okay, now let's see. The FAFSA TAP application. So this Jared is a U.S. citizen. His parents are citizens, so there's no privacy concerns. Their permanent residence is within New York State. He is perfectly fine doing the FAFSA TAP application. That's maximum aid for him. He can get federal aid, state aid, Excelsior. That's Jared. Okay, I think Jeffrey's gonna go through the scenario with us.
Yep. Let's go. Scenario number 2. Brittany is a New York State resident who was born and raised in New York. Her parents recently decided to move to North Carolina to care for an elderly parent. After Brittany graduated from high school, Brittany's parents are both U.S. citizens. Which application should Brittany fill out? Go ahead and throw that in the chat. Which one you think? All right. The DREAM Act is applicable to Brittany. Brittany's also eligible for FAFSA, right? So she meets the citizen requirements for FAFSA, so she can fill out the FAFSA. And for New York State aid, she can fill out the DREAM Act, right? She meets the citizenship requirements and she would have graduated from high school in New York State. So she meets the DREAM Act requirements for education. So she's ready to go there.
Yes, and just want to point out that Brittany's permanent residence was in North Carolina, which is why she has to do the DREAM Act. She couldn't do the FAFSA TAP pathway because TAP would say you're not a New York State resident. However, the DREAM Act will allow her to do the FAFSA and New York State aid. Okay, now I'll go quickly to scenario 3. So Rocco was born and raised in New York. He graduated high school a few years ago and decided to work for some time before he figured out what he wanted to do. During that time, Rocco got married. Now Rocco wants to go back to college and become an elementary school teacher. So Rocco is a U.S. citizen, but his partner is not a citizen. Which application should Rocco fill out? So I'm going to let you all think about this one. Rocco is a citizen, his partner is not. He's in New York. He wants to go to college. All right, let's see. The alternate eligibility pathway. So because Rocco's contributor on his FAFSA form is not a citizen, he may not feel comfortable submitting an application due to privacy concerns. I do want to emphasize Rocco can submit the FAFSA TAP pathway if he likes, if him and his partner are comfortable with that. That is definitely okay. If they do not want to submit the FAFSA due to privacy concerns, then they can do the alternate eligibility pathway and still access New York State aid.
The last one, Pietro arrived in New York last year. He's a Ukrainian citizen who has to leave home due to the war. He is currently in temporary protected status, but has a work authorization SSN. Which applications should Pietro fill out? What do you guys think? Look at his status. Why he's here. You guys will be correct. He's a DREAM Act student, right? Due to his status, he's eligible to apply for the DREAM Act, although his permanent home is, Ukraine. Due to what's going on, he has a status that allows him to be here, and a status that has a work authorization SSN. So he falls in line there, and can now, get the DREAM Act. Okay, so great review. All right, that's a good review for us. So now that we established the pathways, now let's move on to the TAP application, because what we realize is that the TAP application that the FAFSA TAP pathways students see is a little bit different than the ones that these DREAM Act or alternate pathway students will see. We ask this information, but the route is slightly different, and there are some choking or pain points that cause students some grief. So we're going to try to explain those to you so you guys can help students as they apply for TAP through this pathway. All right. So once again, we call it the ISTS TAP application. It used to be the DREAM application, but now with 2 applications being there, I honestly just made it up. I don't know if that's the real name or not, but that's what I'm going to call it from now on. So you can call it that too. So when the students, once again, once they are approved for either the Dream Math alternate pathway, they can add a new application and choose TAP. Now, when they do that, most of the information will be pre-populated, like their name, like their address, and things like that. They can select to receive text notifications or notifications if they need to, and then they can change their mailing address if it has changed. They can do that as well. The first thing they have to do is select the college, right? Just like our TAP application on the FAFSA TAP pathway, selecting the college is important. Students may not know what college they're going to, and that is okay. Don't tell them not to stress out. Pick their number one option, put it there. They also may not have their student ID. So that is not a required field because we realize that students may not have it. If they do, they can enter it there. Make sure when they're entering their ID that they don't put in SUNY or CUNY or NA or they don't use the college or city name. Just put the ID numbers as is. If students don't have it, they can move forward, but please remind them this is what we use to coordinate with schools who gets what payment. We don't really use names or SSNs like that. We use student IDs. So if the student ID is missing when it's time to make that payment, we will not be able to make it. So make sure students are aware that they have to come back in. We say the same thing to the FAFSA TAP students. Make sure they come back in and put that student ID information in so that they can get their award payouts when we try to send them out. From there, we move on to dependency status. I'm going to Natasha take this because this is a place where students have some issues. She's going to explain the flow and how that works.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. So the next section is student dependency status. When they get to this section, the first question is, at any time since you turned 13, were you an orphan, a ward of the court, in foster care, none of the above? If they choose one of the options, then at the end for a document upload, they'll have to submit something to show that they really were in foster care or whatever they chose. If they were not, they can pick none of the above. Just a quick note for anyone over the age of 22, if they were in foster care, they can still choose none of the above. This is only for students under the age of 22. So just keep that in mind when you're helping students with their application. If you're under 22 and you were in foster care or one of the other statuses, put that. Otherwise, put none of the above, and we'll keep going. Okay, the next question they're going to ask if students were honorably discharged from full-time military service. Again, they can select if they were or were not. And at the end, again, if they were, they're going to have to upload documentation to show that they were. Okay. So next, finally, this is where the real dependency questions start. So now it's going to ask if the students, if any of these options apply to students. So that's going to say, have you lived with a parent or step-parent for more than 6 weeks? Have you received $750 or more from a parent? Were you claimed as a dependent by a parent or step-parent, or none of the above? If students select one of those options, it will indicate they are dependent. If the students indicate none of the above, that's going to say that they're independent. Now, if the student is independent, we're going to have some follow-up questions to confirm that. Now we'll get into those follow-up questions. So this is, if you chose none of the above, this is what it's going to say. If it said that if you chose that you were dependent, you won't have any of these questions. Okay, so let's say you're independent, none of the above. The first one is, do you have any dependent children? If you said yes, that will qualify you as independent. If you say no, gotta keep going. So it's gonna ask you some more questions. If you say yes to any of those questions, you're good, you're independent. If not, it's gonna keep asking more. So another question is, what was your age? If you're under 22, again, you're not gonna be independent yet. We're gonna have to ask some more questions to really determine if you're independent. If you're over 22, you're good. We're marking you as independent. Next, your marital status. If you're single, never married, we can't. Then you're still going to have some more questions. If you say you're married, you're good. You're independent. Okay. So let's say none of those apply to you. We still need to confirm your independence. This is the last chance for you to show that you're independent. So it's going to say which describes you. If you're under 22, none of those apply to you. This is your last chance to show you're independent. So do any of these apply to you? Both of my parents were totally and permanently disabled. Both of my parents were declared incompetent. My family is dissolved and are no longer responsible for my care, or I received or will be receiving public assistance. So if any of those apply to you, then you're good. You're marked as independent. And if you choose one of these and you to show you're independent, at the end, you're going to have to do some uploads to show that this is true. For example, if you choose my family is dissolved and my parents are no longer responsible for my care, at the end of the application, it's going to ask you to submit a letter from someone other than you and your parents to confirm this information. So all of these are going to come with upload requirements, and we can talk about that more at the end. If none of these apply to you, you see there's no none of the above option here. So if none of these apply to you, you can move forward with your application. You're just going to be stuck there. So if none of these apply to you, you need to go back and review your dependency questions, because if none of these apply to you, you cannot be independent. That's just the way the law is written. If you're under 22, you need to meet one of these requirements. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and change your dependency questions to show that you are dependent. You might have to say you lived with a parent and you received $750, one of those. If you're really stuck here and you don't know how to proceed, you can email us at the nysdream@applyISTS.com, and we'll try and help you figure out the best way to answer these questions if you're confused and don't know how to move forward. Okay, so now next it goes to reporting parent income. So for the dependent students, it went here. For independent students, we don't need your parents' income, right? So here it's going to ask you what your parents' tax filing status was and some questions about them. You're going to have to put their name and their SSN. We see a lot of issues here. Sometimes, again, parents may have more than one last name. Maybe when mom got married, she hyphenated her last name. If you put only one last name here and they have two last names on their taxes, we're not going to be able to match that with Department of Tax and Finance, and it's going to cause a processing error for your application. So just be really careful and sit with your parents and make sure that you're inputting everything exactly as it appears on the tax return. We will always resolve it if there's an issue, but just to make sure everything goes very smoothly, double check everything to make sure all the information you're inputting is accurate here. Okay, so next we're going to go to reporting student income. So this is going to be for some students to say if they had income. It's going to ask you if you file a tax return. If you didn't, they'll just keep going. But some students do file a tax return. Again, just make sure you're putting everything correctly. Okay, next we're going to go to pension income. So enter pension income used for income calculation. So for 2023, did you, your spouse, or your custodial parents, including your step-parent or adoptive parent, receive pension income? You can select yes or no here. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on this part?
Yeah, sure. So, this is something where there's some students who don't realize that their parents may have made retirement money, right? Whether it's a 401k distribution, Social Security, like these are things that, although they're untaxed, do come up as part of the student income calculation. So sometimes parents are unaware of that. Sometimes students are unaware of that. It even comes down to some things like unemployment compensation. If they received unemployment compensation during COVID, there was a lot of students that lost eligibility because their parents or themselves received those COVID stimulus checks. That's kind of unemployment compensation. So all those are in the calculation. If they don't know, right, and we go through IVP income verification, that may show up, right? When we verify income, it may show up as an IRA distribution or a pension, and it'll show up on our system, and it'll be added to their income for that calculation. Yeah, so definitely something to be aware of.
Yes, thank you so much.
So now, after we've done all that with the income, there's a chance to enter if there's any other family members in college. Now, this is something where there is a slight increase in their award for students who have multiple family members in college. When adding that, they should not include themselves, right? But if they have, even like a mom or a parent, a cousin that lives in the house with them, someone that is in the house with them in their household, a brother or sister, they can include them here. We'll ask for information on that student. We run a, I guess, a report. I don't know what you'll call it, but we run something with the NCAA clearinghouse that will say, all right, these students are matched up. If that doesn't go through successfully, we reach out to the student via letter saying, hey, this didn't match up. We need more information, or we have them send a transcript of the other students so for full-time status for the year. If that doesn't happen, and if we don't get that information, that award will be adjusted and slightly decreased because we couldn't verify that family member in college. But all that students know, they get a little bit more money, not a lot of bit, a little bit more money for students in college. And then supporting documents, like everything else, anything that's required, right, will be in red. Everything that's not required, like you see that there right there, the federal tax return is not required. But if it is required, it will say so, and then needs to be uploaded before the application processes. Much like our traditional TAP application, our FAFSA TAP, they can provide an e-signature or download and sign the document. So with the eligibility applications, the student signed. With these applications, I believe the student and parent must sign, right, for those things. So be aware of that as well. Okay. If there are any corrections that need to be made, whether we reach out or you guys realize if you look at the application, oh no, I forgot this, or didn't add this, or so and so, email nysdream@applyists.com. And they will make the changes for you on your behalf. There's
Mhm.
important information you need to put in there. All right. You need to put the application, right, at the year two, right? By 24, 25 tap application. I need to change this and then check for responses. Natasha, do you want to ask stuff about that? Because you deal with this more often than I do.
Yes. So even if you have a question, let's say you're like, my application's taking so long to process, who to reach out to? This is going to be your go-to email for anything related to any of these applications. As we mentioned, let's say you submitted your application and you thought you were going to go to Suffolk County Community College, and then you realize, actually, I'm going to Stony Brook. You email them as quickly as possible, let them know, I'm going to this college instead, and this is my student ID number. Make sure you're doing all changes with this email. If you have questions saying, I'm trying to upload this document and it keeps rejecting. I go the next day and it's saying to upload it again. Email them with the document and say, here's my document. It's not uploading. Can you please help me? And they'll either upload it for you or they'll let you know why it's not uploading. Maybe there's an issue with the document. You might be submitting the wrong thing. So they're going to be your first pathway for any questions, any changes, any updates. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Natasha. Really huge. So as we continue here, I really want to focus back on fast ready training, right? So this is one module of training where we have the alternate pathway. We also have training for you high school counselors on the FAFSA completion initiative, right? The report that helps you understand where your students are in the financial aid process. We also have modules on TAP, special circumstances that your student may face, right? How to help them with special circumstances for FAFSA and for TAP, as well as this new alternate pathway. So please feel free to go to Fast Ready Training. It's open year round. It is always available. We have video walkthroughs that we are constantly creating. We have a growing FAQ section, especially for this pathway. We really had a concerted effort. Like there's one FAQ that's on there that might be helpful that we haven't talked about yet, but one where if you have a student that has gotten is in this alternate pathway, but then later on realizes, hey, I really want to flip the FAFSA, I need more money, they can do that. We cover that in the FAQs. Even Excelsior, they're not eligible for Excelsior, but in the year from now, if they say, you know what, I want to try it now, as long as they still are meeting the requirements, I mean that 30 credit per year mark, they can actually get back into Excelsior. So if you're wondering those questions and more, go to our FAQ section. We have a long list of questions that have answers that you need, and we'll take some of your questions that you're going to ask and put them there as well. And resources. If a student is having trouble with the path determination with those questionnaires, we got a resource to help them out. If they're having trouble with the eligibility application, we got a resource that walks them through it. We have a video that walks them through it. So look at the Fast Ready training page, not just for alternate pathways, but for TAP, for Fast Completion Initiative, and for FAFSA. We have these resources available for you that you can just hand to students. I've done it before. I've helped students things like requesting a tax transcript instead of running it through with them. I go to our site, go to TAP, request a tax transcript, and I send it a document. So it's super helpful. Another helpful thing for you guys as well, as we say thank you, is social media. We are really increasing our presence on social media. You might see this face right there on social media. I had a fun going to some of your schools and some of the colleges this year and talking to students. But follow us on social media. We're working on adding helpful tips, opening and closing of applications. We'll all be present there. Our support sessions. So Natasha runs support sessions monthly, where she helps students that are going through these alternate pathways to traverse what's going on, help them with the applications. We have weekly drop-in events as well. Those events and other presentations are broadcast on our social media site or where you can register. So please follow social media so you can learn more about what's coming up and get some helpful tips there. So now I'm going to open it up for any questions that you guys may have.